what's very significant is to see if there's a reticule on the screen at the location where the telescope is pointed. That's huge. That's very significant. That's something to get excited about. The little tiny indicator there moving to the proper location. Wow. Hello, Stellarium fans. Are excited that this is the big deal? This video is about the connection to and driving of our mount from Stellarium. This is what it's all about. I do have some cautions here as we proceed, but my goal here is to try and connect, see if I can do a successful slew command. We'll do a couple of those. I want to show you a couple of different ways that you can slew and how you can cancel a slew action. Hopefully this will work for you. It works with my mount setup, so that's good. If you need to halt or abort a slew action. So we'll try a bunch of things, and then I'll show you a graceful shutdown, the proper way to sort of conclude at the end when you're done operating the mount from Stellarium. So again, we're going to look at connecting, slewing, halting a slew, and then the proper way to tear down at the end of our session. So I need to give a bunch of cautions and warnings here. My mount, my old Vixen Super Polaris mount, I don't have the telescope on it. I don't have the counterweight shaft or counterweights in here. And I know I can operate this mount this way with no payload, with no counterweights, small lightweight mount. But can you do that with yours? I'm not suggesting you do it that way. I just did it this way for bench testing. So you need to know the particulars of your mount. Can it operate without a payload? Do you have to do a full setup? Do you need all the counterweights? Can it collide with something? Can the whole thing go out of balance, the whole tripod and all tip over? So I don't want anything bad to happen. This is my disclaimer, sort of be careful. And we have to go through a mount setup so that you want to be correct about the date and time. You don't want to fabricate everything. The computer and the mount need to be in sync. So you got to watch out for things like that. And there's a possibility that the mount will go rogue. The information it gets from Stellarium may be incorrect. It might be that there's communication problems. It might be a driver problem. Could be interference. It could be stuff like that. Or that the date and time are badly out of sync. So the mount goes one way and you're expecting it to go somewhere different. And you could get collisions. You might exceed mount limits, blah, blah, blah. Long list of sort of concerns here. So I'm hoping that you're near the mount right now. You can reach it. You could turn it off. You could maybe hit the cancel button on the hand controller, or worse, pull the power plug. So if my mount does something really weird and I get nervous that it's going to crash or collide, I'm going to pull the power here. I'm hoping nothing will go wrong. Cautions, warnings, be careful, right? You ready? Ready to go? We need to do proper mount setup. Stellarium is not giving us a virtual hand controller, so we can't do the entry of the date and the time. This is, as far as I know, the date and time is not transferred from the computer into the mount. So you got to do your normal thing there. And the mount needs to be aligned. So if I was taking this outside, I would do my polar alignment, my regular setup, and then I'd start the mount, and I'd check the date and time on the location and the time zone, and then I do a 2 or a 3-star alignment or add calibration star, whatever you need to do. You need to do that full setup. Mount's ready to go. Stellarium is assuming that the mount is in a normal state and it's in tracking mode, following objects in the sky. That's what Stellarium is assuming. Stellarium is not replacing your hand controller. Some people use EQ mod. That can replace a hand controller, but not this. Okay? So do what you need to do. And with SynScan hand controllers, there's a PC Direct mode. You might need to use that. I'm a little bit unclear about when that must be used or when it doesn't matter. When I've done testing with it, I haven't had to use it. So I'm going to run through my mount setup. Really, hopefully I can do it really quickly here. You can watch over my shoulder. You can jump ahead to the video to the next marker if you want. Power up the setup, the controller. So date and time's okay. That's good. And I'm going to do now my align, and I'll do a 1-star align. And I'm in my home position. Just wanted to show you. So I have a Delver on, but I'm going to use Regulus. So here we go. I'm just going to do a 1-star align just to do it fast. So presumably this is north. One of the motors shut down. And normally I'd be looking through the eyepiece and fine tuning. I'll just simulate boop, boop. And I go, okay, good. And I hit enter, I'm good. And I don't know if you can hear it, but the mount's grinding away. It's in sidereal mode, it says celestial on the hand controller. So I'm good. Mount is set up. Maybe I'll just slew to another star just for the heck of it. Make sure that's working. I normally do that. So I'm going to pick a star, a name star, and I'm going to go to Ogiba, which is pretty nearby. It's pretty close to where I am. So a short little hop. So here we go. So there we go. I just moved around a little bit in Leo. So mount's up and running. Normal stuff. This is what I would normally do if I'm outside. Mount's going. Now what I want to do is I want to connect the software here. So let's have a look at my Stellarium. So you may recall we could go through configuration, plugins, telescope profile to get to our telescope mount configuration profile screen. But the quick way, again, it's a little bit quicker, is to use the mount control button, the move button in your horizontal toolbar, and use configure telescopes. And I'll just get rid of the slew telescope box for now. I'm going to talk about that later, but not right now. So here are my telescope profiles that I built before, and just put this over here. Oh, and if you're trying this, may I suggest that you zoom out a lot so you can see a lot of the sky. So there we go. And that's the sky right now. And I can see there's Leo over there on the east side of the meridian. So it's sort of ready to go. I remember when I was talking about in my previous video, I said, you know, you can build more than one profile. And that may be relevant if you have a bunch of mounts or you want to use the simulator. But I noticed that the one that I want to use is number 3. I'm going to mentally note that, number 3. But there's my proper mount, the go-to star mount. So what I want to do now is I want to connect. So let's try that. I'm going to hit the connect button. Yours might be worded as start. It depends on how your profile was built. So I'm going to click the connect button or the start button. And I see the connected message shows up in the status here, and there was activity in the screen. Lots of people get real excited when they see the connected status inside the software. They think they're good to go, and everything's fine. Well, it's a milestone, to be sure. It is important, here, but it's not that big a deal. You could have communication problems, port's not working, it's the wrong mount driver. There could be lots of sort of issues there. The bigger thing to look for, what's very significant, is to see if there's a reticule on the screen at the location where the telescope is pointed. That's huge. That's very significant. That's something to get excited about. The little tiny indicator there moving to the proper location, wow. That means you have two-way communication inside Stellarium. So the connected message, that is important. You want to see that. But the more important milestone is to see that the reticule is moving to where your telescope is actually pointing at this stage. Remember, I did my multi-star alignment. Okay, I did a one-star alignment, and I ended up at Regulus. And then I did, let's do a test slew, and I went to Algeba in the neck of Leo, and I can see that's where the mount it is showing that it's pointed at. So that tells me that the mount is communicating back into Stellarium saying, I'm here. And Stellarium says, okay, I got it all plotted on the screen. So that's a really good sign. Okay. Don't get too excited about the connected message, but look for the reticule at the proper location. That's important. Now there are different ways to slew here. So let me show you a couple of different techniques or methods that you can use. I'm going to close the telescope box, and the handy dandy quick way to slew to a different location is to use the keyboard shortcut. Now you need to use the keyboard shortcut that is associated with the number in the telescope profile list. So if you've forgotten the numbers, if you have lots of telescope profiles, you'd have to open it back up and look at it again and memorize that number. But my Vixen Go-To Star profile, I built as number 3. It's the third profile. So I'm going to be using the number 3 in conjunction with my keyboard shortcut. I want to do a small jump. I don't want to jump across the meridian with an equatorial mount. That'll take too long. I also want to make sure the mount is going where I want it to go, so I don't want to go too crazy here long distances. I want to do a short little hop for speed reasons, for a quick test. So choose a nearby star on the same side of the meridian, not too far away. Maybe I'll go to the tail, Denibola, of Leo. So I've selected that star, normal thing, clicking on it with my mouse. You could also do a search. So I'll just go somewhere else and I'll do a search. Hey, I want to go to this star, Denibola. So there it is. And of course, when you do the search, it becomes selected. It also centers on it. Fine, whatever. It doesn't have to be centered. But Denibola is selected either by me clicking on it or doing a search. And now the keyboard shortcut that we can use is on the Windows platform, Control and the number. On the Mac, it's Command and the number, or the cloverleaf and the number. So let's try a slew command, but you need to be ready in case the mount does something weird to stop it or to pull the power. So be ready to grab your mount if you need to take control. But I'm going to now do Control and number 3 in my case, because it's the third profile. Control 3, here we go. Good stuff. So the mount moved, and the beep is from the hand controller, and I see good feedback inside Stellarium. The reticle moved to the target. So to recap here, that when we want to slew, we just use Control and the number, or Command and the number, depending on Windows or Mac. So that's pretty cool. If you have many telescope profiles, you got to go check the number, and it's not necessarily 1, 2, 3. You got to carefully read that list. And the mount should move, and the reticule should move. That's a great sign. This is where we needed to get. This is a very good indication that things are working well. It tells us that the mount driver is good, It tells us we have good cabling, good signals. My USB, it's kind of rare. It's got blinky lights, so I see it's transmitting and receiving. So I can monitor the status of that connection ongoing. And again, it looks sort of good. Synchronization is an issue in my particular mount. I have to sync on the hand paddle, but then I can keep things on track. But it is possible to do a sync inside Stellarium. I'll leave that for you to research or test for your environment. Let's try something though. I want to use a different method for slewing. So the method that I want to use this time, this alternate method, is to go to the center of the screen. So I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. You know, maybe the idea is you're imaging and there's some interesting object. Let me just find a nebula. I'm sort of near galaxies. Oh, yeah. So there, the Leo triplets down here, the Hamburger Galaxy and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm going to just sort of look at this area here. Maybe what I want to do is get my camera aimed right in the center of that. But there's no object right in the middle. If I click there, there's nothing there. So I've got nothing to click on or select or search for that would sort of perfectly center this gap for these galaxies there. So this is about sort of framing and maybe, you know, artistic sort of a layout for a photo or something like that. So what I'm going to do here, I don't want to dilly-dally or waste too much time because these are drifting here, but I'm just going to sort of drag around until I get that gap in the middle of the screen. And now use the keyboard shortcut Alt and the number, or on the Mac, Option and the number. So I'm going to do Alt 3. Now it's moving. I'm ready to grab it if I need to. And I'm zoomed in a lot, so I was waiting for the reticule to show up. There it is. There it is. It landed right in the middle, and that's a bit of a dead zone. There was nothing there. So that's a neat technique. You can use Alt and your number to move just to the middle of the screen, and you've sort of arbitrarily chosen that space. So that's kind of nice. So you got a couple of ways to slew by keyboard shortcuts. Some people prefer to use an on-screen control. So we've used this a few times already, but let's have another look now at this option. Oops. Remember the button that we were using before, the move telescope button with the reticule? Click on that. Here we go. Here's our slew-to. It takes a little while to get used to this, how this works. But choose something on the screen. I'm just going to click on some nearby star. Again, I'm doing short hops right now while I test it. So I'm going to pick this star over here. And now inside the slew box, I have to hit current object. And what that does is it transfers the location for that object into the right ascension and declination boxes. And now I can hit the slew button. You can see there's a sync button here if that's relevant for your scope. Anyway, I'm going to slew. The mount's moving there. It's good. It looks like I'm pointing nearly straight up in the sky, so I'm just monitoring for collisions here and balance and stuff. But that's working good. Now I'm going to try the other method. I'm just going to sort of pan around until I get to the middle of the sky. There's Messier 95, 96, and those other galaxies. Maybe I'm trying to frame all those, so I'll aim to that middle area there. So I'll just put that kind of in the middle of the screen, and then I'll go to the slew box, hit center of screen, and hit slew, and off it goes. So I've used the two techniques here. And there's my reticule. So it's all good. You can type in coordinates here. When I've done this, it's gone kind of bonkers. So let me just try it now. I'm going to do an example, but I'm going to be very careful how I type this. I think you must have the H and the M and all that in here for it to work right. So I'm just going to pick a star over here, and I'm reading the coordinates. Do I have them? There they are. So 10, 50, 45. So I'm going to put in the 50 here. And I'm just trying to be really careful how I type this. I kept the minutes and the seconds in here. And I'll do 45 here. So I think you just got to use really high precision here. 10, it's 16. And what was the minutes? It's 2 minutes. So I'll just get rid of the 8. That's sort of good enough, close enough. But I'm just making sure I got a clean, good sort of structure to that. That's because it's in hours, minutes, seconds. You can use decimal, other conventions. But let's try it now. Every time I've done this, I've got some weird results. I'm going to slew to the location. Okay, it's sort of behaving. So this supports my theory that you just got to be careful. Don't delete the H or the M or the S or the degree or the minute or the second markers, because it looks like Stellarium is really sensitive to that. But that shows you can go to an arbitrary location. Maybe there's a comet at the location, or there's some object that's not in the catalogs, it's not in Stellarium. So this shows a third way of slewing to a specific location, but it also shows that you can use this box to slew to objects and to the center of the screen. But you got to remember to hit that button. It's very easy to do this. Oh, I want to go to this galaxy, and then hit the slew button. Nothing happens. Why didn't that work? I click on the target, I hit slew. Didn't work. Oh, I forgot to hit the current object button. That put in the new location details. Now I can slew to it. There we go. All right. So just don't get into that habit, that routine. Now I want to show how you can interrupt a slew. And this is really important. I strongly recommend you commit this shortcut to memory and you practice it a few times, because there's a possibility that you'll issue a slew command and the mount goes in the wrong direction, or you realize there's going to be a collision, or you're going to have a cable snag with your mount. So I'm going to do a short hop, not like across the whole sky, but enough that it's going to take a couple of seconds to go from where I am. So I'm going to head over to M3. So I've chosen that. I'm going to get rid of the box here just so I can focus on the keyboard shortcut here. Now I know I can press Control-3 to tell the go-to star to go to the selected object. So I'm going to use Control-3 in a moment. But as it starts going, I'm going to press Control-Alt-Shift-3 to interrupt or to abort the slew. If you're on a Mac, it's going to be Command-Option-Shift. That's a typo on that slide. Command-Option-Shift and the number. 3 or 2 or 1 or 4 or whatever it is. So here we go. I'm going to do Control-3 to start the slew. And then I'm doing Control-Shift-Alt-3. I'm going to wait for a bit. And I just did Control-Alt-3. Sorry, Control-Alt-Shift-3. And you can see it stopped. It didn't make it to M3. In my case, my mount actually shuts off sidereal tracking. So when it gets a cancel command or an abort command from Stellarium, it like completely stops. So what I need to do now is just do a normal slew. Okay, let me get back to something good. So it goes back to something good. And in my case, my mount switches back into sidereal rate. So I'm good, it's tracking again, it's fine. So again, I strongly recommend you practice those keyboard shortcuts to make sure that you can interrupt a slew. Did you notice there's no stop button or cancel button in that box? I don't know why that doesn't make sense. They should add it as a safety feature. What's more important in a car, the brakes or the accelerator? So be careful. That's what I'm saying here, and be ready to implement a halt or an abort command if you need to. I'm very satisfied with what I'm seeing. Hopefully you're getting the same outcome, that the mount is moving the way that you want, and your short slews are working correctly. And then I would suggest you sort of gradually work up, do some meridian flips, and see that those are working okay. And then you can probably work fairly comfortably. But if you do notice some problems, you're going to have to put your thinking cap on, do some research or investigate. If you're getting nothing at this stage, you're trying things and you're getting gross errors or nothing's happening, I have some suggestions for you to check. And in my final video, I go through some discussion, again, cautions and warnings, and some troubleshooting guides. But for now, let's pretend it's the end of the evening and we want to shut down. So the final thing that we should do is a graceful disconnect from Stellarium. If you go to the mount and power it off, it might freeze or hang or crash Stellarium because it's still trying to communicate with the mount. It goes, why is the mount not responding? So reverse what you did in terms of connection. So get into the mount profile or telescope profile screen. Quickest way is to use the move button and then configure. And then you'll see the connected or active devices. So use disconnect or stop. It'll be worded differently depending on your profile. But in my case, I'll disconnect. It's disconnected. I don't see the reticule anymore. I see the proper status here. I also get a bit of feedback that the slew telescope box has gone blank. So that's good. I've disconnected there. The Stellarium and the computer are not talking to the mount anymore. And now I can do what I need to do. I'll just shut the mount off. Done. End of session. That's the proper graceful way to do that. So to wrap up here, our big video, what we did was we connected successfully Stellarium to a mount, issued some short slew commands to make sure it was working, looked for a lot of cues and good feedback. We practice aborting a slew in case we need to prevent a collision or a cable snag. And I wanted to show you the graceful shutdown. Ahead of all that, the mount needs to be up and running and needs to be properly sort of synchronized in terms of date and time and location with Stellarium. So thanks for watching. Final video, in some ways is optional, but I do recommend that you look at video 6 because I'm going to give some more cautions and warnings to hopefully avoid problems or damage to your mount. I hope nothing bad happens now that you've found this great sort of solution. If you've not been able to get things working, or it was working last month and now it's not working tonight, you know, I want to give you some troubleshooting techniques. So onwards and upwards, let's take a look at one more video. It'll be a quick one. So thanks. See you in a bit.